Want to be a topper in MBA entrance exams? Join BYJU'S Exam Prep, CAT and MBA YouTube channel and watch serial 99 percentilers teaching you the tips and tricks.
Good noon, all of you. How are you all? I hope I'm clearly visible and audible to you. I am Nikita, and today we are going to talk about some common mistakes that students tend to make in the VRC section of MAHCET. Okay, and primarily our goal is to avoid these mistakes, so we'll learn how to avoid these mistakes, right? In the process, we'll also see a couple of examples, solve a couple of questions. Okay, so let's begin. Good afternoon, Dharmi. Okay. So what do you think? Okay, before I begin, what do you think are some common mistakes that students can make in the VRC section of MAHCET? Yes. Let's take your opinion first. Good afternoon, Prads. Hi, sweetie. Good afternoon. Good noon, Vicky, Sibha. Yes, tell me some mistakes that you feel are usually made in the MAHCET exam in the VRC section and we can avoid them. Yes. Waiting. Good afternoon, Tanvi. Hello, Nandini. Good afternoon, Rishabh. Okay, so let me begin, right? Because I haven't received a response from you. The first and the foremost, something that you know. See, right after ordering your sections, meaning that you must have an order of the sections in your mind. The next thing that's the most important is ordering the areas, ordering the questions. Okay, so this we have discussed, yes, that vocabulary and grammar should be attempted before your RC passages and parajumbles. Why? Because vocabulary and grammar questions usually tend to be shorter. Also, when it comes to vocabulary, it's based on knowledge. Same goes for grammar. It's based on rules. It's based on concepts. So the thing is, either you know it or you don't know it. Okay, if you don't know it, then through elimination, you make a calculated guess and you proceed. But when it comes to parajumbles, critical reasoning, RC passages, you have to read, you have to arrange, you have to apply your logic and then, answer the question. So that takes more time, right? And that's why you go for the shorter questions first, isn't it? Something that we have already discussed. Right. So Vicky says time management. Absolutely correct. Both of you, Vicky, Omkar, we'll discuss that as well. So let's have a look at two questions here. So this is a parajumble question with 5 options, of course. And here is a vocabulary fill in the blank. Vocabulary based fill in the blank. Now in the exam, of course, which one? Let's say this question is given first. That does not mean you have to attempt it first, right? Go for the vocabulary fill in the blank. Yes, go for it and tell me what the answer should be. Let's see how you find it. Easy, moderate, difficult. What do you say? What do you think is the correct answer? Eliminate. Okay, I've got D. All right. Okay. D is what you say. Okay. Others. No one says commendation. B, Bangalore. Action will be taken on all dash within a month. Okay. I've got a unanimous D so far. Okay, perfect. D is the answer here. Grievances is what should come in this blank, right? So I'm happy that you eliminated. I'm happy that you didn't confuse commendation with recommendation. Okay, sometimes students do that. So what is commendation? Yes, commendation. Is it the same as recommendation? So here, when I say commendation, that does not mean that okay, the act of, let's say, recommending someone, referring someone. Okay, no. It simply means praising someone, the act of praising someone. So, praise is what commendation means. So, actually, we are trying to take action on something. It will definitely not be on commendation or appreciation. Right? Acclamation, again, it's a positive word. These are all positive and related words. When you acclaim, when we say this is a critically acclaimed movie, that means in a way a critically approved movie. Critics approve of this movie, right? So acclamation is approval. Acclamation is approval of someone. So B, C, E eliminated, and of course action not on solutions but on grievances makes more sense. Okay, on your complaints, on your grievances, that is what we take action on. That's why D. Absolutely correct. I was just trying to confuse you by asking if B is the answer or not. That means see you found this question to be easy. So definitely this should have been attempted first. See, you're going to get equal marks for all the questions, right? It's not that for a lengthier question you're going to get more marks, or for a more difficult question you're going to get more marks. So we have to keep this in mind that we have to maximize our score and we have to attempt the shorter questions first. Now let's have a look at this question. Yes, parajumble, we have to arrange this in a coherent order. The options are on your left. Hi Ayush. Okay, Vicky has answered. All right, Sanil has answered. Dharmi says D. Others? Shailesh E. Okay, so far 3 E's, 1 D. All right. C, I would say C, okay, a different option. Okay. More E's coming my way. Others? Omkar says D. All right. Vismay says E. Okay. Quite a few of you think that E is the answer. Yes? Other options? Rishabh says D. Natasha D. All right. So in these questions, see, I understand that probably you are trying to see what is the opening sentence, what is the closing sentence. Maybe that is your thought process, or you are just trying to read some of the opening words only. But trust me, you have to read the entire sentences, okay? Unless the options themselves are very easy. Here, I can clearly see that, okay, 1 could be the opening, 5 could be the opening, 4 could be the opening. So I'm not getting any clear cut opening sentence also, even from my options when I glanced at them, right? So fine, look at, I'm not saying don't look at the first few words. So for instance, in its aerial form nitrogen is insoluble. Okay, so it refers to nitrogen, doesn't help me much actually, right? This looks more of an introduction of nitrogen, an essential food for plants. So it's possible that this or this is the answer, possible, right? But let's see what the paragraph is trying to talk about. That's also important to know. Then only I'll be able to make a flow out of it. Before plants can take life from atmosphere, nitrogen must undergo transformations similar to the ones that food undergoes in our digestive machinery. Okay, all right. in its aerial form, nitrogen is insoluble, unusable, and is in need of transformation. Right? So we are saying that in this sentence, we are saying it is in need of transformation. And here I am talking about the kind of transformations it must go through. So most likely 2 should come before 1. Most likely, isn't it? Right? So that actually makes this option suspicious. So I'm just putting a cross here, right? Although I may return to these, but right now I feel that A and C are not the answers. 3 says, lightning starts the series of chemical reactions that need to happen to nitrogen, ultimately helping it nourish our earth. All right, okay. Now, 4 says, nitrogen, an essential food for plants, is an abundant resource. Abundant resource of what? Okay, essential food for plants is an abundant resource, so it's a food, fine, with about 22 million tons of it floating over each square mile of earth, right? And then I say in its aerial form here. So this is a clue for me that 4 should come before 2, because here I'm saying it's floating over each square mile of the earth. So you see, this is a theme based clue. 4 should come before 2, right? So if you see here, I have in D and E 4 to 1 as the sequences, isn't it? 4 to 1 as the sequences in D and E. And in fact, I've got a lot of E's as the answer and a couple of D's also. So the point is now where to place 5 and 3. One of the most dramatic examples in nature of ill wind that blows goodness is lightning. Okay, how? Lightning starts the series of chemical reactions that need to happen to nitrogen, ultimately helping it nourish our earth. Right? So, if you see here, if it's about the placement of 5, 3, 5, 3, now here I am saying that okay, it is in the nature of ill wind that blows goodness. What is that? Lightning. How? Then I explain it in 3. I say lightning starts the series of chemical reactions that need to happen to nitrogen. Okay. Transformations, ultimately helping it nourish our earth. So don't you think that 3 first gives the process in brief? 3 gives the process in brief, and then 4, 2 and 1 explain it. 4, 2 and 1 explain this further. So actually the sequence is D and not E. Okay, why? Because if you place this first, nitrogen, then in its aerial forms, then before it needs to, it must undergo transformation similar to the ones that food undergoes in our digestive machinery. Then suddenly if I start talking about lightning here, you see that this sentence does not talk about nitrogen at all. नाइट्रोजन की तो बात ही नहीं है ना इस सेंटेंस में. So you see, if after writing 4 to 1 I suddenly put 5 in between which does not relate to nitrogen at all, this becomes absurd, right? Whereas as an opening sentence it gives me a clue as to what is going to come next. Okay, so I am going to show in this paragraph that how lightning, which actually is an ill wind as people call it, can blow goodness. So this entire thing is an example of that how lightning is beneficial. Okay, so that's why 5 has to be the opening sentence. I hope now this is crystal clear to everybody, because a lot of times, yes, students mark A as the answer here. Okay, 4 to 1, students are able to identify, 5, 3, they're able to identify, but whether it is D or E, that's the question here. Now, this was because of the options here, because of the 2 close options here, this could become relatively challenging for some of you. Yes? So, of course, this is beneficial attempting this first, isn't it? That is my point through this point number 1, mistake number 1, not ordering the question. So please order your questions. You're going to get equal marks for all the questions. Imagine such an easy question in the face of a moderate question, right? Okay, let's come to the next mistake that students make. Not prioritizing the RC passages. Okay, Tanvi, I'll answer this, right? In the meantime, you tell me, see, I know that sometimes you might have just 2 RC passages, right? I know that. But my point is, even if there are 2 RC passages, then also don't just start attempting the first one that you see. That shouldn't be the approach. Why? Because if let's say it proves to be unnecessarily difficult for you when you start reading it, if it throws difficult language at you, you might waste a lot of time in this particular RC that you could have read in the next RC, which might be easier. So always give a read to the first few sentences. So what I do is I read the first sentence of each paragraph. First sentence of each paragraph. That gives me a rough idea of what the para is about, what the passage is about, what is its language like, right? So accordingly, I attempt. Now here I have taken two passages from your previous year papers only. Uh, this one is from 2020, I believe, and this one is from 2017, right? So I want you to read both these paragraphs and then tell me which one would you attempt first, one or two, and why. Your reasons could be different. Okay, so there is no set order for everybody, it differs for everybody. So tell me which one would you attempt first and why. Yes. Abhilasha says second one. Okay. Hmm. Let's see what the others say. Two, it looks interesting. Vicky says it looks interesting to me. One, it has more facts and figures. Good. Okay. So it differs for so basically different students are selecting different RC passages, right? So now see, for a student who likes to read facts, okay, who likes to read factual RC passages, let's say. See, I am just giving you a glimpse here, right? The rest of the passage it's possible that the rest of the passage is not factual. But honestly speaking, this was a factual RC passage. I have read the entire thing, right? So this has a lot of facts and figures. So somebody who enjoys numbers would prefer this perhaps, right? Because what is being talked about is an easy thing only, right? The language is not difficult. But for someone who enjoys opinions more, let's say argumentative passages more, perhaps second would be the choice. Plus, second does not have a lot of facts and figures. So, because I also enjoy facts and figures less, I would also choose two here, right? So, it can differ for different people. But if, let's say, you enjoy such passages, but you choose this as your first passage, then of course, here you might have a hard time in, let's say, remember, you might just try to remember all of these facts, to process all of these facts. Maybe some sort of processing is also required for one of the questions, which is greater, which is less. So in that case, you've made the wrong choice. So that's just my point. Just read the first sentence of each paragraph. It hardly takes any time, and prioritize your RC passages. It helps you in saving time, which is important for MNC. Right? Okay, now a question that was asked earlier was that para jumbles, how to attempt them in the given time frame. So first of all, there can be two types of para jumbles in MNCT. One can be a set wherein you just have one paragraph that you have to arrange and 5 6 questions are based on it. So this is just like an RC passage only. In its essence, it's like an RC set only. Or you can have separate questions. So last year we had separate questions and these were not very difficult questions. So a student could attempt them in 1 minute, right? So when you have separate questions and they have options and they tend to be not very difficult in terms of language, I don't think attempting them should be a problem, right? The problem arises when, let's say, you have an entire set and it has 6 7 sentences, and plus there are no options as such. There are 6 7 questions after it. That is when it becomes tedious. For this, our only guide is practicing previous year papers, because this type of a parajumble question is unique to MSc, right? For these, I think if you have prepared for CAT, you will not face a problem in MAHCET because the level tends to be relatively easier, plus there are options, right? And if yes, you have to, if you want to know how to master this, see, practice is the key here. Practice as many para jumbles as you can. What happens is that students focus on vocabulary, grammar, RCs, but para jumbles, critical reasoning, sometimes they ignore these. Don't do that, right? So practice about, let's say, 6, 7 para jumbles in a week. That's it. Let's say one para jumble every day, right? With options, because MHCT is going to give you options. So that should suffice, I think, when it comes to mastering parajumbles. It's all about how much you've practiced. That increases your speed, right? Also, of course, in the long run, the better reader that you are, the better you are at solving parajumbles, right? You're able to make those connections faster. That's a long-term thing. Okay, all right. Probability of getting that multiple question PJ. If I go by last year, then it is low. If I go by the pattern of last year, right? Probability of getting it correct. Okay, that's what you're asking. See, sometimes options are given. Sometimes, the question, uh, after asking, let's say, a para jumble, okay, in one of the questions, in one of the 5, 6 questions, options will be given to you, right? Just like the one that I showed you. If that is the case, then it becomes a relatively easier question. Also, in my opinion, you should not leave the set also entirely, because some of these questions, at least 1 or 2 of these questions, are usually vocabulary and grammar questions. So at least attempt the vocabulary and grammar questions from this set, if you, even if you're not attempting the entire paragraph, right? That would be my suggestion. So I hope this makes sense to you now that you have to prioritize your RC passages. Okay. Now coming to our next mistake here. Okay, Ayush, an RC passage session. All right. Okay. Mohit, that's a very subjective question that you asked. It depends on your current level of preparation, whether you've prepared for any entrance exams, any management entrance exams ever, right? So it's difficult for me to answer it without your background, your information, right? Now, giving equal importance to all questions, that's again a major mistake that you can make. I think I've showed you this through the example of the vocabulary and the parajumble question, right? You should give more importance, of course, to the easier questions. For instance, let's say I chose this one, the gorilla passage. Now, let me show you 2 questions that were asked from this RC passage, 2 of the many questions. One of the questions, why has the author cited the example of the Arabian oryx? Okay, and 3 statements are given, and then there are these combinations. Okay, only these 2 are the reasons, all these are the reasons, only B, only C. And then there is this question, which of the following is true about roadside zoos? Which of the following is true about roadside zoos? Which one do you think I should go for first? Which one do you think I should focus more on, let's say? Even if you go in a serial order, which one should I focus more on? Tell me. Okay, the second one, of course, right? Because the second one looks like a pretty direct question, and it was indeed a direct question, right? Whereas this one is not just a logical structure question asking you the why of things, it also has these combinations in options, right? Which means that you have to evaluate each and every reason here carefully, right? So, of course, this is going to be time saving, and this is going to be easier for you. Right. So in an RC passage also, when you look at the questions, right, just flip through the questions once when you are attempting them and go for the focus more on the direct ones. That's my point here. I'm not saying don't attempt this. Please do attempt this, because all in all, this passage was not a difficult passage in the exam, right? So a student could have attempted this also correctly. But priorities should be set, right? Now, there's a question that has been asked, that what should be the level of accuracy? See, it entirely depends on the kind of paper that you get. Okay, if it's an easy paper, your accuracy level should go up. Okay, it will go up. Okay, if it's a difficult paper, your accuracy level might go down, right? So asking this question, and in fact, nobody can actually pre-decide their level of accuracy. Can you go to the exam with this mindset कि मैं 80% correct करके आऊंगी? Nobody has that in mind, right? All of us want to be 100% accurate. So you can never pre-decide these things. So your best chance is that you look at the paper that comes to you. If you feel that okay, most majority of your questions are difficult, then you're slightly cautious, right? Anyway, you will mark all the answers, right? There's no negative marking. So but then you pay attention to the questions relatively more when there is a difficult paper. And if you feel that okay, it's a smooth going, the paper is easy, then you just keep attempting the question. That's it. Don't worry about things like the percentage of accuracy, because honestly it's not in our hands. It depends on the kind of paper that we get. Okay, now coming to another query. Just a second. RCs. How many number of questions is it okay to get incorrect? It again, Shriyans, it depends on the kind of RC passage that you have. If it's a very factual RC with very factual questions, then I expect you to have a very high degree of accuracy there, right? My aim will always be to get maximum questions correct. So it will depend on the kind of RC passage. Okay, having said this, if let's say this proved to be a difficult question for me, I would not unnecessarily waste my time on it. Okay, if I have a 70-80% surety about let's say 2, okay, over others, I would just mark 2 and proceed. Right? Okay. So I hope this is helping you, right? This session is helping you. My idea was to just bring to the fore some common things that you already know subconsciously, but you need to realize in a formal, systematic manner as well. Right? So let's see the next error. Okay. So Ayush, your analysis is based on past how many year papers on which pattern? Because in 2015 the pattern was changed. So how many papers did you take? Because if you look at the earlier papers, 2015, 2016, these were easier papers. There you required a much higher accuracy levels to score a 99 percentile, right? But if you look at the later papers, 2019, 20, 21, you required, even with a relatively lower score, you were able to score 99 percentile, right? So this is about CAT. Okay, anyway, I'm digressing. Now coming to our fourth point. Okay, so Abhijit is asking what is a good score in verbal? See, assuming that 50 questions are going to come in the exam, assuming this, okay, I think a student for whom, let's say, VA is not their weak area, VA is not their weak area, should definitely target 40 plus. Okay, if VA is not your weak area. If it is, then of course, then I think I would ask you to reach 35 plus actually. If you're extremely good at, in fact, it's your best area, then for even up to 45 is achievable, right? Again, based on your previous year papers, the kinds of questions that have been asked there. Okay, so I think 40 plus is what we should aim for. Right. Nandini, that's a very loaded question that you asked me actually. See, again, I ask you to make this decision yourself. So look at the various competitive mocks that are on the market, right, that are being offered. See if any free mocks are being provided. You can always check with the institute and attempt those free mocks, and then yourself you have to make the decision about the difficulty level. Okay, I don't want to personally recommend one over the other. Okay, all right. Coming to time management, very important, right? Not managing time well is a major problem with a lot of students. And why does that happen? Because either, again, we unnecessarily waste time on a particular question because we feel, ye to karna hi hai, I have invested a bit of time on it, so now I can't leave it. We have a problem with letting go. Either that is the reason. Or the other reason is that overall you are a little careless about time. You don't see the timer often enough, okay? Or you feel that, okay, initially you are pretty slow in attempting the paper, and then when you realize, by the time you realize that you need to buck up, the time, a lot of time has elapsed. So avoid both of these things, right? MHCT is a speed-based exam, right? The speed factor is important there. So do not unnecessarily waste time in particular question, right? If let's say you have a 70-80% surety about a particular option, mark it and proceed, right? If let's say you are not even able to narrow down to two options, it's a vocabulary question, you don't even know the word, make a random guess. Pre-decide what your random guess is going to be. So for instance, for questions that I don't know the answer to, I usually think अच्छा B या C mark कर दूंगी, जो मुझे बिल्कुल समझ नहीं आएगा, B and C I'll mark and then I'll proceed. So have that kind of strategy in place. Don't waste time in particular question. And yes, overall time management is important. I think mocks help you a lot here to keep a healthy track of time. Not just being glued to the timer, बिल्कुल ऐसा नहीं है timer को ही देखे जा रहे हो question को नहीं, right? And not being very casual about the timer either, right? So a healthy look at the timer is what will help you. If you ask me approximately how much time should we spend on the VRC section, in approximately 40 minutes, I think even a good student, by good, see, all students are good. By good, I mean somebody for whom VRCs is their strength. Even that kind of a student can glance at all the questions, can mark all the questions in approximately 40 minutes. 1 or 2 minutes above, 1 or 2 minutes below, that's there. Right? Okay. Now, the next mistake is not reading the question well. Particularly, this happens with my students in synonym antonym questions. They end up marking synonyms in antonym questions. Let's say these questions have been asked in a series. So the first three questions were of synonyms. Okay, now they forget to read the instructions for the fourth question, and maybe it's an antonym question, but they end up marking the synonym itself. So please read the instructions very carefully. They are there for a reason. Okay. Then sometimes students are not able to comprehend in critical reasoning questions whether it is a strengthening question or a weakening question. So read your question stems very carefully. Okay. Because if let's say in a strengthened question you take it to be a weakened question and mark an option accordingly, let's say it has such an option as well, you've lost marks and you actually ended up spending a bit of time also. CR tends to take relatively more time, right? So please gauge this very carefully, the kind of question that is asked in critical reasoning. Okay. Ideal reading speed. Okay, Sanil is asking what's the ideal reading speed. See, Sanil, if I again look at your previous year papers, usually you get approximately 500 to 600 word RC passages. That's the average length. Okay, I have seen RC passages of 634 words also and 400 something words also. I have the precise word count as well, but this is the approximate RC length. If I'm talking about the reading speed, I think that your reading speed should be about 250 words per minute. That way, you'll be able to read the RC in approximately 2 minutes. And this works for a majority of your entrance exams, barring let's say IFT and a couple others. But majority में आपका यही length आता है, right? So this works for all your entrance exams out there. Okay, so 250 words per minute is enough, and a lot of college students already have this speed. Okay, and sometimes students start with a 200 words per minute. It's easy to reach 250 from there if you read regularly. That's always there, right? Okay. Then yes, please read the not and the except in the question stems carefully. Okay, what cannot be inferred? The author agrees with all of the following except. So sometimes students don't pay attention to this not except, because of which they mark the incorrect answer. Clear? तो ये बहुत silly mistakes हैं, ये किसी के नहीं होने चाहिए, right? The silly ones are those that we can absolutely avoid. A very common one, isn't it? Not applying elimination. Let's see an example through which I'll highlight its importance. Here's a word bristle, and 5 options are given to you. You have to find the meaning of this word. Yes, tell me. Okay, Abhilasha, I'll guide you regarding that. B, C, B. Okay. Okay. B, C. All right. B. Okay. This might have changed her answer. So now I have three C's, three B's. Okay. Now I have four C's. All right. Anybody with a B? C again. Okay. So C is leading now. Anyone who wants to challenge that? Okay. So what happens is that in this question, bristle, the moment we hear the word bristle, no, a brush comes to our mind. Bristle belongs to a brush, right? So if let's say I'm reading in the serial order, which is what a majority of us do, I realize, okay, this is related. Immediately my mind makes a connection. Now, if I'm not careful about the other options, or if I just ignore them, sometimes students do that as well, then I'll mark B as the answer, but B is not the answer. So when let's say you just read two options, not read the others carefully, and immediately decide that B is the answer, that means you have not applied elimination. Your mind understands that this is related, but is this the meaning or not? You have to become sure of that, isn't it? So bristling and whistling, they just sound similar. They're not related at all. So good, nobody has said A. To bow down to someone in front of someone, that does not mean to bristle, right? So one thing, again, now see, reading can help you here indirectly. So when I looked at this question, okay, I realized first of all I'm using it as a verb. Okay. So then I realized that I have read sentences in novels. He was bristling with anger. He was bristling with something. Okay, so it's an emotion. That is something that I realized. So if he was bristling with anger, then C makes the most sense, that he flared up. When you flare up, again, you become pretty angry about something. Right? It's not about control, it's about anger. So C is the answer indeed and not B. So now see, I reflected on the options a little. Uh, I mulled over the fact that okay, B and C देखो लग रहे थे अब आपको options, right? Students narrowed down to B and C. So you had to eliminate and then arrive at the correct answer. Okay, hope this makes sense. Oh, all right. Now, uh, how to calculate the reading speed? See, you can just pick up any text. I suggest that you pick up something relatively simpler, of course, of your level, but relatively simpler. So, pick up, let's say, a relatively factual RC passage or any factual text, right? And then when you start, just put on a timer. When you start reading, put on a timer. And when you end, just end the timer, right? You need to know the number of words in that particular RC passage, right? For instance, in the previous one, the gorilla one that I gave you, this was 634 words, right? So put a timer when you start, put a timer when you end. Now let's say you took 2 minutes to read this. So 2 minutes to read 634 words. Now your reading speed is 317 words per minute. That's how you calculate it, right? Okay. Coming to our next mistake, a mistake that students can make. Yes, bristle as a noun, yes, it means that hair of a brush. It means the hair of a brush. Okay, so as a noun, it means that. Here I was using it as a verb. As a verb, it means to get angry about something, to act defensively, right? That is bristle. Okay, yes. So this is something that you have to do. MHCT does not have negative marking, so mark all the answers, right? If you do not have any clue about a particular question, let's say there are five, six such questions in your whole exam. I'm being very optimistic here, and that you have no clue about, absolutely no clue. then you can pre-decide from your home itself that okay, I'll mark B or C in such a case, right? And just mark that. So don't leave any particular question. For those that you have some rough idea about, make a calculated guess. For those that you have no clue about, mark a predetermined option. And of course, those that you have an idea about, you will mark that carefully. So do mark all the answers. Okay. Hurrying through grammar questions. Now you must be thinking that I always ask you to hurry, I always ask you to speed read, but for this I am particularly asking you, do not hurry through them. Why? Because you will be able to spot errors when you read something thoroughly, when you read something, let's say word by word, right? Then only you'll be able to find out the gaps in it. You are evaluating there. So don't hurry a lot through the grammar questions. Sometimes students hurry through the instructions themselves. They don't even read the instructions carefully, as I told you earlier. So look at this as an example. It says each question consists of 4 sentences on a topic. Some sentences are grammatically incorrect or inappropriate. Now, a lot of times what students do is they'll read till here, right? And they'll think of, acha, isme se kaun se incorrect hai? And they'll mark that. But read further. Select the option that indicates the grammatically correct and appropriate sentence. जो correct और appropriate है वो choose करना है and not what is incorrect. So read completely, read carefully. Okay, and now yes, read this question, read it carefully. You'll be able to spot the errors, the gaps, and tell me what the answer should be. Yes. Shriyans, you are preparing for IPM, right? So for you it's different. You have negative marking. If the options are not visible to you, this is A and C. This is A and D, B and D, A, C, D, A, C and D, and this is none. Abhijit says C, okay. Option C, which is B and D. All right. Okay. Option C. All right. Others? B and D. Okay. C. All right. C is correct. So you see, if I hadn't read this question correctly, I might have marked A instead of C. I might have marked option A instead of option C. So that is why it's important to read the instructions carefully and to read the sentences also, because you spotted some errors. Then only you formed a decision. Okay, D also I've got, A also. Okay, some of you think A is incorrect. So what is the error in A? Let's discuss that now. Error in A. When virtuoso teams begin their work, individuals are in and group consensus is out. So when virtuoso expert teams, plural, begin, plural again, find their, plural again, ठीक है, कोई problem ही नहीं है. Teams begin their work, individuals are in and group consensus is out. So I didn't find any error on reading this. No subject verb agreement error. No other error as well. A is fine. Right. So A is correct. So now those who marked C as the answer, just a couple of few marks C as the answer. A में मुझे कोई error नहीं लग रहा है, right? So for me, this is a part of the answer. But again, I'm going to read all the sentences before again making a decision. B. As project progresses, however, the individual stars harness themselves to the product of the group. As project progresses. Shouldn't it be as the project progresses, let's say? It's a singular countable noun. It needs something before it, right? So B definitely has an error, and therefore this C cannot be the answer. Okay, C cannot be the answer. Now coming to option C. Sooner or later, the members break through their own egocentrism and become a plurality with, see, they become a plurality with a single-minded focus on the goal. So sooner or later, the members break through their own egocentrism and become a plurality, become a unity. In a way, basically they act as one. That's the idea. They become a plurality with a single-minded focus. A was required here as well. So C is erroneous. Even this cannot be the answer. Okay. Now, even this cannot be the answer. Either A and D or none. Let's look at D. In short, they morph into, they change into a powerful team with a shared identity. Seems correct to me. So the answer is B, Bangalore here. Okay, and just a second. A and D were the correct ones. Let me see how many of you said B, Bangalore, A and D. Nobody said it. A and D are the correct ones. Nobody said that. Alright, so this was a relatively tricky question, right? A question that required concentration on your part, a very sound knowledge of articles, right? So I have given you a higher level question just to show you that in difficult questions, in difficult grammar questions particularly, hurrying will not help you a lot. Okay, in fact, it will be like time wasted. So when you see a lengthy, tricky grammar question, please go at a relatively slower pace. The question paper was not ordered according to the sections, and there were some students came back and said there were some science questions that were asked in their paper, right? So at that point, what helped those students who scored well the most? Just keeping calm. Okay, keep calm, right? Have the right attitude. If you feel that the paper is difficult, it is probably difficult for everybody if you've practiced enough, right? So no matter what comes your way, no matter what surprise comes your way, just take it in your stride, right? And just work your strategy accordingly. So even if, let's say, the paper was not in the right order, yes, so in that case, let's say you face a QA question first, then you face an LRDI question later. So you had some order in your mind, right? That okay, I will attempt LRDI first. So I think LRDI, because it is sets, the sets were still easier to isolate. These will be lengthy questions, right? So you isolate those sets and attempt them first. If, let's say, God forbid, let's say RC questions, keep them for the end and keep on noting down the question number for each RC passage. Okay, RC1, the one that I spotted was, I think ye wala question is RC ka, so ye wala question number, right? So have the right attitude. If it's a lengthy paper, it's lengthy for everybody. If it's a difficult paper, it's difficult for everybody. Anything that surprises you will probably surprise others as well, right? So that's very important. Okay, Sayush, we need to take a lot of mocks and work through that. Okay. So I think these were the mistakes that you need to avoid. These were some common mistakes. I hope you enjoyed the session. You learned something from it. And if you did, then please go and press the like button. Okay. And do subscribe to our channel. It goes without saying. These are our cat toppers. You get to meet them, right? There's some surprise your way, right? So that's why it's written no more. We'll get to know more. And this is our comprehensive CAT program. It's not just for CAT, it's for all the MBA entrance exams. This is all that you get here. A lot of material, a lot of expertise, a lot of sessions, right? Both recorded and live sessions. Okay, so Do stay connected by joining this Telegram group, right? You can just copy this link and join. Yes, Abhijit, that's the added effort that you have to make. Shriyans, to answer your question, see, you asked this question, how many guesses can I make out of 40 questions? So this is just for Shriyans. See, it depends on how sure you are about the answer in that question. I always say that if, let's say, you are about 80% sure about an option, no, then mark it, right? However, it should not be the case that for a majority of your questions it's happening that you are just not sure, right? For a majority of the questions, this should not happen, right? So we need to again see the level of paper. If I talk about an IPM Rohtak, for instance, it tends to be easier as compared to an IPM Indore, the level of VRC. So in Rohtak, you should be more sure about more number of questions as compared to an Indore, right? So just keep this as the goal कि अगर मुझे इतनी श्योरिटी है तो मैं मार्क कर दूंगा, अगर मुझे इससे कम है, राइट, मुझे डाउट्स आ रहे हैं, देन आई विल नॉट मार्क. ओके, ऑल राइट. Hope this helps. Welcome, welcome all of you. Welcome. Yes, Ayush, I will. Okay, I will. The Telegram link. See, this is the Telegram link. Uh, I think our team also must have shared it in one of the messages. Just copy this, na? Just note this down if if you are not able to copy this, right? Let me. Okay. Hope this helps. Bye. Welcome. See you all. Sanil, we don't know. I sincerely hope that's not the case because there were a lot of complaints from students last time. So I hope that that's not the case. Okay. All right. Ayush, you're talking about CAT, right? They think you're talking about MHC. That's why. Okay. Welcome. I'll see all of you again, right? Of course. And we'll practice a lot more. We'll keep an RC session also. See you. Bye.